Before I share my story, let me ask you, what would you do if the child you raised decided to sell the home that held your family's history and the whole village's heart? I thought my daughter understood what this house meant, but the day she announced she was selling it, I realized I'd spent years hoping she'd see the world through my eyes. This isn't just a story about property or pride. It's about the moment you realize your roots run deeper than any price tag, and that sometimes the people you least expect will stand up for what matters most. So settle in, and if you've ever wondered what you'd do in my shoes, hit that subscribe button. Because what happened next changed not just my family, but the whole village forever. The day my daughter announced she was selling my village home, I realized I'd spent my whole life tending roots she was ready to pull up. It started with a letter. Not the kind you get in the mail, but the kind that arrives in a flurry of emails and phone calls, the kind that makes your heart sink before you even open it. My daughter, Myra, had been living in the city for years, busy, ambitious, always chasing the next promotion, the next apartment, the next big thing. I was proud of her, of course. She made a life for herself when I could never have imagined when I was her age. But I stayed in the village. I stayed in the house my parents built, the house where I raised Myra, the house where Tom and I spent our best years. It was a simple place, whitewashed walls, a red-tiled roof, a garden full of roses and mint and wild strawberries. The kind of house that creaks in the winter and smells of bread in the summer. The kind of house that holds memories in every corner. Myra visited less and less as the years went by. She'd come for holidays, for weddings and funerals, for the occasional long weekend when she needed to get away from it all. She'd sit on the porch with me, sipping tea, her phone always buzzing, her eyes always drifting to the horizon. "Mom, you should sell this place," she'd say, half joking. "You could move to the city, be closer to me. You don't need all this space." I'd smile, shake my head, and tell her I wasn't ready. That the house was more than just walls and windows, that it was home. But then Tom died, and the house felt bigger, emptier, lonelier. I tried to keep busy, gardening, baking, helping at the church, visiting neighbors. But the ache never really went away. I missed the sound of his laughter, the warmth of his hand in mine, the way he'd whistle as he worked in the garden. Myra called more often after Tom passed, checking in, making sure I was eating, sleeping, taking my medicine. I was grateful for her concern, but I could hear the impatience in her voice, the way she always circled back to the same question. "Mom, have you thought about selling the house? It's a lot to take care of on your own." I'd change the subject, talk about the weather, the roses, the new family that moved in down the lane. But I knew she was right in a way. The house was a lot. The garden was a lot. The memories were a lot. One Sunday, Myra came to visit. She arrived in a flurry of suitcases and shopping bags, her hair perfectly styled, her shoes too clean for village roads. She hugged me, kissed my cheek, and set about making herself at home. We spent the afternoon in the garden, pulling weeds, picking strawberries, talking about her job, her friends, her plans for the future. She seemed restless, distracted, her eyes always on her phone, her mind always somewhere else. That evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun set over the fields, she turned to me, her voice gentle but firm. "Mom, I've made a decision. I'm going to sell the house." I stared at her, my heart pounding. "What do you mean you're going to sell the house?" She sighed, reaching for my hand. "It's too much for you, Mom. You're alone here. The house is old, it needs work, and you could use the money. I've already talked to a realtor. There's a developer who's interested." I pulled my hand away, my voice shaking. "This is my home, Myra. You can't just sell it." She looked at me, her eyes full of pity. "I'm just trying to help, Mom. You'll be happier in the city. You'll have me. You'll have everything you need." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. Everything but my home. That night I lay awake, listening to the sounds of the village, the distant bark of a dog, the creak of the old oak tree, the soft hum of the wind through the fields. I thought about Tom, about the life we'd built, about the roots we'd put down in this place. I realized then that I was tired of being told what I needed, tired of being treated like a burden, a problem to be solved. And I promised myself that if the chance came, I would fight for my home, no matter what it cost. If you've ever wondered what you'd do if your own child tried to sell your past, or if you want to see what happens when a mother finally stands up for her roots, don't forget to like and subscribe. The next part of this story will show you just how far a woman can go when she's fighting for her home. The next morning, I woke to the sound of birdsong and the smell of dew on the grass. For a moment, I let myself believe it was just another summer day, that Tom would be in the kitchen making coffee, that Myra was still a little girl, her hair tangled from sleep, her feet bare on the cool tile. But the house was quiet, the only sound my own breath and the distant hum of a tractor in the fields. I made myself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table, staring out the window at the garden. The roses were in full bloom, their petals heavy with rain, their scent drifting through the open door. I thought about all the mornings I'd spent in this kitchen, packing lunches, baking bread, listening to Tom whistle as he worked in the yard. I wondered if Myra remembered those days, if she understood what this house meant to me. Myra came downstairs, her phone already in her hand, her eyes bright with purpose. "Morning, Mom," she said, pouring herself a cup of coffee. "I have a call with the realtor at 10. They want to come by this afternoon to take photos." I stared at her, my heart pounding. "So soon?" She shrugged, her voice brisk. "The market's hot right now. We don't want to miss our chance." I wanted to argue, to beg her to wait, to remind her that this was my home, not just an asset to be sold. But I bit my tongue, afraid of making things worse. After breakfast, I went for a walk through the village. The streets were quiet, the air thick with the scent of lilacs and fresh bread from the bakery. I stopped to chat with Mrs. Novick, who was sweeping her porch, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. "I heard Myra's thinking of selling the house," she said, her voice gentle. "Are you all right, Anna?" I forced a smile, blinking back tears. "I'm fine, Mrs. Novick, just a lot of changes." She patted my hand, her eyes full of sympathy. "This village wouldn't be the same without you, or your house." I nodded, the ache in my chest growing. "Thank you, that means more than you know." When I got home, the realtor was already there, her car parked in the driveway, her clipboard in hand. She greeted me with a bright smile, her eyes scanning the house, the garden, the old oak tree in the yard. "It's a lovely property, Mrs. Evans," she said, her voice brisk. "Lots of potential. The developer is very interested." I nodded, my voice tight. "I'm sure he is." Myra hovered nearby, her phone pressed to her ear, her eyes darting between me and the realtor. I watched as they walked through the house, taking photos, making notes, talking about updates and renovations, and maximizing value. I felt like a ghost, invisible in my own home. That night I sat on the porch, the stars bright above me, the air cool and sweet. I thought about Tom, about the life we'd built, about the roots we'd put down in this place. I wondered if I was being selfish, if I was holding on to something I should let go. But then I remembered Mrs. Novick's words. "This village wouldn't be the same without you, or your house." And I realized that sometimes, the things we hold on to are the things that hold us together. The next day, the village felt different. Word travels fast in a place like ours, and by mid-morning, I could feel the shift in the air. Neighbors stopped me on my walk, their voices low, their eyes full of concern. "Is it true, Anna? Are you really selling the house?" asked Mr. Novick, his hands deep in the soil of his vegetable patch. I forced a smile, trying to keep my voice steady. "Myra thinks it's time. She says I'd be happier in the city." He shook his head, his brow furrowed. "This house is part of the village, Anna. It's part of you." I nodded, the ache in my chest growing. "I know, but I don't know how to make her see that." Back at home, the realtor was back with a photographer, snapping pictures of every room, every corner, every view from every window. Myra followed them from room to room, pointing out features, talking about potential, her voice bright and businesslike. I watched from the hallway, feeling like a stranger in my own home. I noticed the way the photographer lingered on the old fireplace, the worn banister, the sunlit kitchen. I wondered if he saw the memories etched into the walls, the laughter, the tears, the love that had built this place. After they left, I found Myra in the garden, her phone pressed to her ear, her voice low and urgent. "I know Mom's being difficult," she was saying, "but the developer is offering more than we ever dreamed. It's a good deal. She'll come around." I stood there for a moment, the words sinking in. I realized then that this wasn't just about money. It was about erasing the past, about building something new on the bones of what I'd spent a lifetime creating. That evening, I sat in the kitchen, staring at the family photos on the wall. I thought about Tom, about the promises we'd made, about the dreams we'd shared. I wondered what he would say if he could see us now. His daughter ready to sell the home he'd built, his wife fighting to hold on to the last piece of their life together. I realized then that I couldn't do this alone. I needed help. I needed someone who understood what this house meant, not just to me, but to the whole village. The next morning, I walked to the mayor's office, my heart pounding. Mayor Kovacs had known Tom since they were boys. He'd watched our children grow up, watched our family weather storms and celebrate victories, watched our house become a gathering place for the whole village. I knocked on his door, my hands shaking. "Anna, come in," he said, his smile warm, his eyes kind. "What brings you here?" I sat down, my voice trembling. "Myra wants to sell the house. She's already talking to developers. I don't know what to do." He listened, his face growing serious. "That house is part of our history, Anna. It's part of who we are. Let me see what I can do." That night I lay awake, listening to the wind in the trees, the distant sound of the river. I thought about the mayor's words, about the hope in his eyes, about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't alone in this fight. And I promised myself that I would do whatever it took to save my home. The next morning, I woke to the sound of rain tapping against the window and the distant toll of the church bell. I made myself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table, watching the garden soak up the water, the roses bowing under the weight of the storm. I thought about the mayor's promise, about the hope in his eyes, about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't alone in this fight. Myra was already up, her phone pressed to her ear, her voice brisk and businesslike. She barely looked at me as she poured herself a cup of coffee, her eyes glued to the screen. "I have a call with the developer at 10, she said, her tone clipped. "They want to make an offer today. I hope you're ready to sign." I stared at her, my heart pounding. "Myra, please, can't we talk about this? Can't we wait?" She shook her head, her eyes cold. "There's nothing to talk about, Mom. This is the best thing for both of us. You'll have money, freedom, a chance to start over. The house is just a house." I wanted to scream. I wanted to remind her of the summers we'd spent in the garden, the birthdays we'd celebrated in the kitchen, the nights we'd sat on the porch watching the stars. I wanted to make her see that this house was more than bricks and mortar, more than a line on a balance sheet. But I bit my tongue, afraid of making things worse. After breakfast, I walked to the mayor's office, the rain soaking through my coat, the wind whipping my hair into my eyes. I knocked on the door, my hands shaking. Mayor Kovacs greeted me with a warm smile, ushering me inside, offering me a towel and a cup of strong, sweet coffee. "Anna, I've been thinking about your situation," he said, his voice gentle. "I talked to the council last night. We all agree your house is part of the village's history. It's where we held the Harvest Festival, where we gathered after the flood, where we celebrated your and Tom's 50th anniversary. It's more than just a building. It's a piece of who we are." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Thank you, Mayor. I just don't know how to make Myra see that." He nodded, his eyes kind. "Let me talk to her. Sometimes it takes an outsider to remind us what we're about to lose." That afternoon, the mayor came to the house. Myra was surprised to see him, but she put on her best city smile, inviting him in, offering him coffee, making small talk about the weather and the state of the roads. He listened politely, then turned to her, his voice gentle but firm. "Myra, I know you want what's best for your mother. I know you think selling the house is the right thing to do, but this house isn't just hers. It belongs to all of us. It's where the village comes together, where memories are made, where history lives." Myra frowned, her eyes narrowing. With all due respect, Mayor, this is a private matter. My mother owns the house. She can do what she wants with it. He nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. That's true, but sometimes what we want isn't what we need. Sometimes the things we let go of are the things we regret the most. He stood, his voice ringing out. If you sell this house to a developer, it will be torn down. The garden will be paved over, the porch will be gone, the memories will be lost. Is that what you want your legacy to be? Myra was silent, her face pale. That evening, the village gathered in the square. Word had spread about the house, about the developer, about the fight for the future. Neighbors brought candles, flowers, photos of their own families in front of our house. Children drew pictures of the garden, the old oak tree, the swing Tom had built for Myra when she was a child. The mayor spoke, his voice full of passion and pride. This house is more than just a building. It's a symbol of who we are. It's a place where we come together, where we celebrate, where we mourn, where we remember. We can't let it go without a fight. The crowd cheered, their voices echoing through the night. I stood in the center of the square, surrounded by friends and neighbors, my heart full. I looked at Myra, her eyes shining with tears, her face softening as she listened to the stories, the laughter, the love. After the gathering, Myra came to me, her voice trembling. I didn't realize, Mom. I didn't know how much this house meant, to you, to the village, to everyone. I'm sorry. I was so focused on the future, I forgot about the past. I hugged her, my own tears falling. It's not too late, Myra. We can still save it. We can still save us. She nodded, her arms tight around me. I want to try. I want to remember. That night I sat on the porch, the stars bright above me, the air cool and sweet. I thought about Tom, about the life we'd built, about the roots we'd put down in this place. I realized then that sometimes the things we hold on to are the things that hold us together. And I promised myself that I would never let go of my home or my family without a fight. The next morning, the village was buzzing. Word of the mayor's speech and the candlelit gathering had spread to every corner of town. People stopped me on my walk to the bakery, their faces full of hope and concern. Anna, we're with you, Mrs. Novick said, pressing a warm loaf of bread into my hands. We won't let them take your home. Even the children seemed to sense the importance of what was happening. They drew pictures of the house, the garden, the old oak tree, tapping them to my gate and leaving them on my porch. I collected each one, my heart swelling with gratitude and pride. Myra spent the morning on the phone, her voice tense, her words clipped. I could hear her in the kitchen, arguing with the developer, with the realtor, with her friends in the city. I can't sell, not now, she said, her voice breaking. You don't understand. It's not just a house. It's my family's history. It's my mother's heart. She hung up, her shoulders slumping, her eyes red with tears. I found her sitting on the porch, her hands folded in her lap, her gaze fixed on the garden. I'm sorry, Mom, she whispered, her voice trembling. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was helping you, but I was just trying to make things easier for myself. I sat beside her, wrapping my arm around her shoulders. It's all right, Myra. We all make mistakes. What matters is that we learn from them. She leaned into me, her tears wetting my shoulder. I don't want to lose this house. I don't want to lose you. I hugged her tight, feeling the weight of years lift from my shoulders. You won't. We'll figure it out, together. That afternoon, the mayor stopped by with a stack of petitions. Hundreds of signatures from villagers who wanted to save the house, to keep it in the family, to preserve the heart of the village. We're with you, Anna, he said, his voice full of conviction. Whatever you need, we'll stand by your side. I thanked him, my eyes shining with tears. For the first time in weeks, I felt hope blooming in my chest. That night, Myra and I sat on the porch, watching the sun set over the fields, the sky painted in shades of gold and pink. We talked about Tom, about the memories we'd made, about the future we wanted to build. I realized then that sometimes, the hardest battles are the ones you fight for the people you love. And sometimes, the greatest victory is simply refusing to let go. The days that followed were a blur of meetings, phone calls, and quiet moments of reflection. The developer called again, offering more money, promising to honor the spirit of the village with new homes and a park. Myra listened politely, but I could see the change in her eyes. She was no longer dazzled by the numbers, no longer convinced that selling was the answer. Instead, she spent her days with me, helping in the garden, baking bread, walking through the village, listening to the stories of neighbors who had known her since she was a child. She began to see the house not just as a burden, but as a living thing, full of memories and meaning. One afternoon, we sat together on the porch, the petitions from the villagers spread out on the table between us. Myra traced her finger over the names, her eyes shining with tears. "I didn't realize how much this house meant to everyone," she whispered. "I thought it was just old, but it's part of who we are." I squeezed her hand, my voice gentle. "It's easy to forget when you're far away, but roots run deep, Myra. They hold us steady, even when the world tries to pull us apart." She nodded, her voice trembling. "I want to stay, Mom. I want to make this house a home again." That evening, we called a family meeting. Ruth came, bringing a pie and her steady presence. Mark joined by video call, his children waving from the background. We sat around the kitchen table, the air thick with anticipation. Myra took a deep breath, her voice clear and strong. "I've changed my mind. I'm not selling the house. I want to keep it in the family. I want my children to know where they come from." There was a moment of stunned silence. Then Ruth smiled, her eyes shining. "That's the best news I've heard in years." Mark nodded, relief in his voice. "I'm glad, Myra. This house is part of all of us." After the call, Myra hugged me, her arms tight around my shoulders. "Thank you for fighting for this, Mom. Thank you for reminding me what matters." I hugged her back, my heart full. "Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming home." That night, I sat on the porch. The stars bright above me, the air cool and sweet. I thought about Tom, about the life we'd built, about the roots we'd put down in this place. I realized then that sometimes the things we hold on to are the things that hold us together. And I promised myself that I would never let go of my home or my family without a fight. The weeks that followed Myra's decision felt like a new beginning. The village seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief. Neighbors stopped by with casseroles and flowers, children played in the garden, and the old house was filled with laughter and music once again. The sense of community, of belonging, was stronger than ever. Myra threw herself into restoring the house, determined to honor its history while making it her own. She painted the shutters a cheerful blue, planted new roses in the garden, and even convinced Mark to help repair the old swing Tom had built so many years ago. Ruth came every weekend, bringing her grandchildren, their laughter echoing through the halls. One Saturday, the mayor stopped by with a basket of fresh bread and a smile. "You did it, Anna," he said, his eyes twinkling. "You saved the heart of the village." I smiled, feeling a warmth I hadn't known in years. I didn't do it alone. The village stood with me. My family came home. He nodded, his voice soft. "That's what makes a place a home. Not the walls, not the roof, but the people who fill it with love." Myra and I spent long evenings on the porch, watching the sun set over the fields, talking about the past and dreaming about the future. She asked me to teach her how to bake bread, how to tend the roses, how to keep the house warm in the winter and cool in the summer. I showed her the secret places in the garden, the best spot to watch the stars, the stories behind every photo on the wall. We invited the village for a celebration, a potluck in the garden, music and dancing under the stars. The house was filled with friends and neighbors, old and new, their voices rising in song and laughter. Myra stood beside me, her eyes shining with pride and gratitude. "Thank you, Mom," she whispered, "for fighting for this, for fighting for us." I hugged her, tears slipping down my cheeks. "Thank you for coming home. Thank you for remembering." As the night wore on, I sat on the porch, the stars bright above me, the air cool and sweet. I thought about Tom, about the life we'd built, about the roots we'd put down in this place. I realized then that sometimes the things we hold on to are the things that hold us together. And I promised myself that I would never let go of my home or my family without a fight. Sometimes, the places we fight for are more than just walls and windows. They're the heartbeats of our families, the keepers of our memories, the roots that hold us steady when the world tries to pull us apart. I never imagined my own daughter would try to sell the home that held our family's story, or that it would take the whole village to remind her, and me, what truly matters. But life has a way of testing us, of showing us who we are when everything we love is at risk. If you've ever had to stand up for your home, or if you've ever felt like the world was moving on without you, I hope you know you're not alone. I know what it's like to sit in the quiet after everyone's gone, to wonder if you did enough, if you loved enough, if you mattered enough. I know what it's like to feel the ache of old memories and the hope of new beginnings, to want to hold on and let go at the same time. But I also know that healing is possible. That family can be found in the most unexpected places. That sometimes the greatest strength is in saying, no, not just to others, but to the fear that you don't belong. Would you have let your child sell your home, or would you have risked everything to keep your roots alive? Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your history? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your story, because sometimes sharing our pain is the first step toward healing. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and share it with someone who might need a little hope tonight. Your support means more than you know. Thank you for listening and for being part of this family. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, even after the deepest heartbreak, you can still choose to begin again. And if you want to see what happens when a woman finally chooses her own story, or if you believe in the power of second chances, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because the next story might just be the one you need.